he talks about the history of some of the Croatoans that when they met them coming here, they took them back to the UK, and there's records of them being in the UK and like, I don't know, testifying to their experiences and taking in the culture. It's very similar to Squanto, but 100 years before him doing that, over 100 years before him, where, you know, there was this cross-pollination of culture at the I had this, the Squanto thing just reminds me of this. I had this guy, Andy Powell, in here for episode 202.
I've heard that name.
Okay, so this guy was so cool. He's from the UK, and he was the mayor of a town, I forget the name of it, on the southwest coast of the UK. And I can't remember, we recorded this January 2024, and then I put out the episode. I held that one. I put that one out like end of April 2024, beginning of May. It was like right there. But he came across some sort of historical record where he realized that the Lost Colony of Roanoke was really the first colony in America before the ones that we know of. And it was really founded in like 1587. And that the guys who founded it were from his town. And so it turned into this odyssey where he literally ended up moving to the United States, where he still lives, and sunk his life into this for the last over 2 decades, covering the story and figuring out what happened, because there's something strange where they came through, went back to Britain, and then came back, and the people they had left there were gone, and they found a sign from, I forget the local tribe, what they were called. I think it starts with a C, but the local Indian tribe, where they wondered if they were like
Croatoa.
The Croatoans, that's right. And they found a sign that said like Croatoa. And they didn't know if it was like an SOS signal, like we've been kidnapped by them and maybe eaten or whatever the fuck could happen, killed, maimed, or if the people just joined with the tribe and left forever. And it's like forgotten to history. But he talks about the history of some of the Croatoans that when they met them coming here, they took them back to the UK, and there's records of them being in the UK and like, I don't know, testifying to their experiences and taking in the culture. It's very similar to Squanto, but 100 years before him doing that, over 100 years before him, where, you know, there was this cross-pollination of culture at the highest first level. And, you know, these people got to experience something so outside of what their reality had been before, you know, these Brits just washed up on shore. It's a crazy, crazy story. It's so fascinating because you try to put yourself in the shoes of both parties. And, you know, one's discovering like a land filled with people that have no relation to their culture. And, you know, then the other has the opportunity for some of their people to go back over to where those people came from and see their culture and experience the same thing. And you're just like, it's like a fucked up version of Spider-Man meme, but you know, they're not both Spider-Man.
Yeah. There's a brilliant book. I think it's called Broken Spears, and it says, I think it's called Broken Spears, and it says it's the Aztec discovery of the Spaniards, and it's written from the Aztec point of view and how bizarre it must have been for Native Americans to see. You know, you never think about it from the Native American point of view, how strange that must have been. But yeah, man. Okay, so in North America, people don't realize this, and this is kind of what we were talking about. There's this underbelly of North American colonial history. I mean, when we think about the colonies, like the average person typically thinks of at the earliest, maybe the Boston Tea Party. You know what I mean? Like typically, like at the earliest, that's kind of where it begins.
Yep.
Dude, there's 200 years of history beneath that. 200 years of history beneath that. 200 years before that, there are already forts way out in North Carolina near where I live, Winston-Salem. I think it's called San Juan Fort. And the Spaniards put a fort all the way out there. They were going to try to make a claim for all of the southeast United States. This is crazy stuff, dude. So I think it's in the 1530s or maybe it's the 1560s. They put a fort all the way out in North Carolina. And kind of like the colony of Roanoke, they essentially say, hey guys, I don't know when we're going to be back. So you're just going to have to survive. And we're going to go from the coastline and build inwards to try to get to this fort. You know what I mean? They're going to try to cut off the they're going to try to cut off this northern edge and the southern edge and essentially corner off piecemeal, the southeast U.S. and eventually connect it to Texas. But they had some problems with the Comanches in Texas, so they kind of abandoned that. The Comanches were...
That happens a lot.
Yeah. So this Fort San Juan, if they were able to connect these trade routes from the Mississippi River to the North Carolina coast, like the Outer Banks and over, they would have cornered off the entire southeast United States. We'd all be speaking Spanish today. It would be completely different. But the Cherokee banded together and raided that fort in the middle of the night, like one of the biggest invasions that we know of that's completely overlooked in American history. And it was the Cherokee that pushed the Spaniards out of the southeast United States and destroyed that fort. Had that not ever happened...
Shout out to the Cherokee.
Shout out to the Cherokee. Had that not ever happened, history could look totally different right now. And man, there's all kinds of stories of this. Of the 1500s, Europeans are out exploring North America and trying to conquer it. It's just... And all of these things had to happen exactly the way that they did for American history to turn out the way that it did. It's just... It's an incredible history, dude.
I also talk about it all the time, the exponential bias with which we view history. And what I mean by that is when we look at what we might put, quote unquote, modern history and talk about like post-World War II, we have generations that are still alive. So we look at like the people that were growing up in the 40s and 50s as they're the oldest people in our society. That was so long ago, right? Mm-hmm. But it's not that long ago. The farther back we go, though, we start to squeeze together time. Meaning, by the time we get to thinking about the 1700s, someone who lived in 1725 seems almost the same as someone who lived in 1765. Whereas today, when we look at it, someone who lived in 1965 and someone who lived in 2005, two very different people. But then when you get all the way back to like year zero or 50 AD or 100 AD, we talk about people that lived in 50 AD and 375 AD is like the same thing, and they're fucking 12 generations apart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The culture is so different. So we look at time through this weird sphere based on our current perspective of it. And so we ignore, as you said, a lot of that, like, there's like almost 200 years of history, basically, before you even have a Revolutionary War. That's almost the length of our current existence as a country.
Yeah.
Wild.
When it's like, the recipe, all of the ingredients are coming together for what the world society is going to become today, and it gets looked over. I remember growing up, you get the basic American history. That's why I say most of the time we start colonial history. You open up, American textbook in high school, and it starts with the Boston Tea Party. There's nothing before that, not really. I mean, maybe there is something there.
Put like the Stamp Act in there.
But that's kind of where it begins. In those years leading up to the kicking off of, the Declaration of Independence. And what's funny is you might get something about Columbus in there as well, and it's like I don't know if most people, we all have Columbus in the back of our head. 1492, sails the ocean blue. He discovered the Americas. Boom, American Revolution. You know what I mean? You almost like don't even perceive the fact that there's so many. I mean, it's almost 300 years difference in there, and it's like we just skip directly over that. I think that's so true. I use that saying. I was talking with Mark yesterday about that. I shouted you out. I was like, Julian, he words it so well that the further you go back in time, we start like compacting it together, almost like we're minimizing the files and just clumping them all in because we're just so far removed from it that we minimize the significance of those periods of time.
We can't have that appreciation of how different those things look. Like, imagine plucking a person from year 100 and another person from year 200. They wouldn't even know how to have a conversation with each other. For sure. We just look at everything as like Moore's law. Well, it's just gotten faster with technology, so it was slower back then. Yeah, but people change.
Think about this. If you put yourself in a room with another guy that's exactly your age, but in 1925, and you're both standing down the street in New York City, you have nothing to relate to each other, nothing in common at all. Your perception of New York City, every single facet of the entire city is utterly, completely different, right? And it's like, man, you think about, I guess this kind of easily gets into like why sometimes I'm just perplexed at how vindictive archaeologists and historians can be about their assertions about the ancient world, because I'm like, dude, I don't even know if you could actually dive into and truly appreciate and understand the mindset of somebody who lived exactly where you do 100 years ago.
You can't. Joe might be able to. He's been writing a play about it that's now off Broadway on New York. Shout out Sacco and Vanzetti, the famous case from the late 1910s into 1920s.
Yeah.
You'd be able to have a conversation with someone back then.
Yeah, I think so. I think I could match up with their transatlantic accent.
Is that really a fake thing, this transatlantic accent? Like, was it something that was only put on for movies and radio? It was like something. It was an accent that they tried to force, right, to sound aristocratic or sound smart.
You want to do it for people, Joe?
You're coming in the morning, and we're gonna play, and we're gonna have a couple of cheeseburgers with some cigarettes on our cheeseburgers. We're gonna put cigarettes on everything because that's what we love here. We love cigarettes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. See, he's like spot
Nice
on.
job, dude.
He could do it. No, I love that. This is like, he's a stud.
Okay, so is that accent? It was actually artificial, though, right?
Yes.
Like Americans tried to make it work, but it didn't.
Yeah, and for, like you said, it was supposed to give an air of aristocracy and just make you sound smarter and more sophisticated, and especially for like showbiz. There's a lot of those guys sounded really stupid with their actual regular voices.
Did they actually take it on though? Meaning like people put it on so much that they used it?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you look at if you look over in England in high society, there's the accent of the kings, right? They speak differently.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? And they actually talk like that because
they do.
above society.
Oh, it's worse. It's the worst.
It's pretty gay. But anyway. Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.